Welcome to this Spacelane tutorial. Today we're going to look at how to replace your current Spacelane drawing sheet with an imported DXF drawing and make a few modifications to customize the drawing as well. Let's start by removing the default views that we see on our screen. To do that, we can click on these dashed boundary lines that surround that view and click the delete button on our keyboard. We can also delete these views by right-clicking on them in the structure tree and selecting delete. One last view to delete, and that's the front view. And we can move on to removing the actual default format that we see. In the Detail tab and in the Sheet Setup group, we actually have a format drop-down. If you click on that, you can specify a different format. However, we're going to want to remove the format and import our own. So click on Remove Current Format. Once we have a white sheet of paper, we can now go to the Insert tab and click on the File Browse button. Let's make sure we set our filters to DXF, and let's locate our DXF file and click Open. Once we have the DXF file imported, we can now make some modifications before we save it as our new default format. The first thing we want to do is go back to the Detail tab, go to the Views group and click on the General button. That's going to allow us to place a new view right in the center of our drawing. And by default, that view is going to be the isometric view. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the Note property on the left. We've got several notes here that we probably don't want in our default sheet format. So we can box select around those. Let's box select around notes 2 through 7. And let's hit the delete button on our keyboard. We're going to want to take the note that's left and actually resize it to fit in this area. And we can do that by clicking once on the note and then clicking on these round dials to just click and drag to resize the box. I'll go ahead and click and drag the right dial there as well as the one at the top. Now that I've got it set in the right location, let's go ahead and see how we can change the font. So if we double click on the actual font, there is a quick little pop-up that appears. However, we also have those same options here where we can change the font type, font size, as well as the font width. Let's go ahead and change the font width to 1. That way it fills in the space a little bit better. Let's zoom out and move to the right a little bit, and let's take a look at the title block. Here, we're going to want to insert an image or a company logo. To do that, let's go back to the Insert tab, and this time let's click on the Picture Browse button. Let's locate our image and hit Open. Once we open our image, we now have the option to place it wherever we'd like. Once we identify where we're going to place it, let's click again to set the image. Once it's set, we can click on the image again, and now we've got these blue dials that allow us to resize the image if we need to. Next, let's look at how we can actually take a title note and actually make it intelligent enough to link to the design. That way you can type in a title on the design side and have it map directly to the drawing. In this example, rather than modifying an existing note, let's go ahead and box select around these notes here and hit the delete button. And in the Detail tab, we can click on the Note button to create a brand new note. Let's click and place the note somewhere over to the left side of that box. And then we can click on the right circular dial to expand the box outward to fit in the space. Next, let's double click on the font or on the text there, and let's click on the Insert Field button in this little pop-up. Once we do that, we now have the option to map that note to any field property or any file property that we see in this list. Let's scroll down and find Title. Let's click on Title and hit OK. We now have assigned title to that particular field. To test this, we can go back to the Design tab by clicking on the Design tab at the bottom of your screen, clicking on the design at the very top in the structure tree, and looking at the Properties panel. You'll see we've got a section for File Properties. It's called File. And let's scroll down until we find Title. Once we see Title, there's a blank box next to it that we can type in a title. And let's type in New A-Size Drawing. Once we're done, we're going to want to go back to the sheet to see if that value has mapped over correctly. Once you click on the Sheet tab, you'll see that that value has mapped into that note that we created originally. Lastly, let's go ahead and take a look at our Rev block. And let's add an additional row to this actual Rev block location. To do that, I'm going to go to the Design tab and use the Move tool. To start, I'm actually going to click on these endpoints of the vertical lines, and I'm going to hit the Control button on my keyboard to multi-select all of those endpoints. Next, I'm going to click on the green arrow and move those points downward. To specify a specific value, I can hit the spacebar and type in 0.5 and hit Enter. Now we've got that to move 0.5 away from the original location, and we can now use the Line Sketch tool to sketch a new line for the row. Once we do that, we're going to have to go into sketch mode. Right now, we are in 3D mode, but if you click in white space one time, you'll notice now we are in sketch mode. So go ahead and click once on the left vertical line, drag your mouse over to the right side, and click again. We've now created our first row, and now we can click on the Select arrow to make sure we've got the appropriate line weight specified for that line so it matches the rest of the border. Let's click on the line above it and go to the Display tab. Here we can see that the line weight is actually set to 0, and the line style is set to solid. Let's make sure we've got the same style for this line below. The line style is solid, and the line weight will make 0. Now that we've actually finished modifying this drawing, we need to go back into 3D mode by clicking on the Design tab and then clicking 3D mode. Let's go ahead and save it. Let's go File, Save As, save it in a specific location. Let's call it New A-Size Drawing. Let's make sure our file type is set to scdoc, and let's hit Save. Once this drawing is saved, we'll need to assign it as our default drawing. Let's go File, let's click on Space Claim Options. Let's locate the Detailing section and click on Size and Format. Once we do that, we have the opportunity to browse and reassign what our default format needs to be every time we create a new drawing in Spacelane. So let's click Browse, identify that new drawing by clicking on it and hitting Open, and then we can hit OK. Now that we specify that as our default, let's test to make sure that it works. File, New, Design, and let's go File, New, Drawing Sheet. And now we see our new drawing is set to be default. Thank you for watching this video.